Dragon Quest III, The Seeds of Salvation, or just Dragon Warrior 3 if you grew up in North America. It is the third game in the legendary Dragon Quest series, and in Japan, this thing didn't just sell well, it frickin' detonated. And on day one, there was over 1 million copies sold. And in a week, over 3 million copies were sold. And yes, almost 300 students were arrested for skipping school in Japan, just so they could buy this thing. That is how insane the hype was. And people love to say that the Japanese government banned Dragon Quest releases on school days, which is a cool story, but also complete bogus. Enix themselves decided, yeah, maybe we should stop launching these things on weekdays before we actually cause a national crisis. Meanwhile, in North America, yeah, it didn't sell that well at all. Dragon Warrior 3 didn't hit the US market until March of 1992, long after the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis were already throwing hands in the 16-bit console war. So, to American gamers, this shiny new 8-bit JRPG looked like it showed up to a gunfight with a butter knife. And JRPGs still hadn't taken off in the West yet, so the timing for this game's release was just brutal. And in my last two videos, you know how I kept saying I was going to be playing fan translations for Dragon Quest 3 and 4? Because I genuinely didn't realize they even had English releases. That's how poorly they sold. They came out so late in the NES lifecycle and with such tiny print runs that even I, someone who was actively researching and reviewing the series, didn't know they existed. Yeah, I was fully prepared to patch ROMs and play fan translations, only to find out, oh wait, these games did come out in English. It's just that nobody bought them. So yeah, the timing absolutely murdered these games in the United States. But here is the real question. Is the game actually good? The first two Dragon Quest games were fine, important for their time, historically groundbreaking, but not exactly drop everything and play today material, unless you are a hardcore JRPG fan. So, does the third game finally break that pattern? Let's find out in my review of Dragon Quest III. We're gonna start by talking about the story first, and the game opens with a surprisingly well animated 8-bit cinematic. And immediately, you're probably thinking, who in the hell is this guy and why is he fighting this dragon?
Good question.
Anyway, the cutscene shows this mysterious warrior slice off the dragon's wing, only for the dragon to grab him and dunk him into the volcano. Fantastic start to the story, I gotta say. Anyway, after that, you press start, pick a name and gender, and then the game opens up on your 16th birthday. The King of Allen Hand summons you and gives you the classic JRPG assignment. Hey kid, your dad died trying to save the world. Go finish the job. Oh, and by the way, the guy we saw in the opening cinematic was the hero's dad. Just thought I'd point that out. Anyway, from here, you head to the local tavern, recruit your party, and your adventure begins. And one of the best parts of Dragon Quest III is that you can name everyone in your party. And I mean everyone. So naturally, I named my hero after myself, because if I'm going to save the world, I want the credit. For the rest of my party, I named them after Centurion Dragon Studios members, like Jared, our music producer, and the guy I did a Final Fight video with a while back, Shane, our lead artist. Because every party needs someone who can draw the monsters we're fighting. And Ashlyn, who is not a member of the studio, but is a really good friend of mine, and I just thought it would be cool to bring her along. You're probably asking, why in the hell did I do this? And I answer with, why in the hell not? If the game lets you name your characters whatever you want, you either pick something cool and meaningful, or you name one of them Dum Dum. Now that we've got ourselves a party, let's go on our first epic quest, which is find a key that opens wooden doors. Yes, wooden doors. So, here's the deal. A thief named Baker made a special key that can open these doors, but he's in jail, and someone stole his key. And that someone is an old man who wandered off to a giant tower. Fantastic. So you go off to the Tower of Nemu, the game's first real dungeon, where you climb all the way to the top, fight monsters, dodge pitfalls, and finally meet the old man. And what does he do? He just hands you the key. Why? Because he saw you in a dream, and in that dream, he gave you the key, so now he's awake, and now that he sees you in real life, he now has to give you the key. Perfect, airtight logic. With the thief's key in hand, you can finally open these legendary wooden doors, which leads to your next problem. You're stuck on an island. There are no boats, no ferries, no friendly fishermen willing to give you a lift. Nothing. So, how do you get off this island? Do you build a raft? Hijack a ship? Ride a dragon? Nope. You go through a tunnel under the ocean. Because that's just perfectly safe. This tunnel is the Cave of Enticement. A tunnel that is shockingly intact for something holding back millions of gallons of seawater. Except, of course, for the part that isn't, and that it's collapsed. Because of course it did. That's what happens when you build a cave under the freaking ocean. And I want you to take a wild guess as to how we get past this obstacle. Don't worry, the solution is simple. It's explosions! Yeah, we gotta go get a magic ball. What does the magic ball do? It's basically a bomb. That's right, when there's an obstacle in your path, first you try brute force trauma. If that doesn't get it out of the way, just use some good old-fashioned explosions! And that's how you escape the starting island. Not by sailing, not by flying, but by blowing up a collapsed underwater tunnel with a magical explosive orb. Next up on our world-saving scavenger hunt is the magic key, which you find inside the desert pyramid. And honestly, this dungeon actually has a interesting puzzle in it where you have to find 2 hidden buttons and press them in the correct order to open a sealed door. Sounds cool, right? Except the game gives you 0 indication where these buttons are, what they look like, or even that they exist. Yes, there's a hint in the town of Isis, where some kids sing a song about it, but the song is basically press the buttons in the right order, not where the buttons are, or how to find them. Thanks, kids! Truly invaluable. Anyway, once you get the magic key, you can finally head to the town of Portugal. And this king? Man, this king is obsessed with black pepper. Like, I will trade you an entire ship for some black pepper obsessed. Which sounds insane until you realize this is actually historically accurate. Alright guys, time for me to give you a history lesson on black pepper. You see, back in the Middle Ages, black pepper was insanely expensive. We're talking worth its weight in silver expensive. Venice had a monopoly on the spice trade, which is one of the reasons Portugal went looking for a sea route to India in the first place. Vasco da Gama literally sailed around Africa in 1498 because Europe wanted pepper so badly. So yes, a king wanting to trade a boat for pepper is totally believable. Weirdly enough, Dragon Quest III is somewhat historically accurate here. Anyway, after you get the pepper, the king gives you a sealed notice to show to Nurd, or is it Nurad? Or I'm going to call him Nurud. Anyway, Nurud the dwarf, who guards the tunnel to the east. You hand him the letter, and he responds by doing the most dwarf thing imaginable. He opens the tunnel by smashing through the wall with his head. No tools, no magic, just pure skull-based excavation with the side of a concussion. Talk about being hard-headed. With the tunnel open, we can reach the town of Barthra, where you can finally get the black pepper. Except, the shop owner's daughter has been kidnapped. So of course, we gotta go rescue her. And when we do that, we run into Kintar, a thief that if you did a side quest earlier, you would have meeting before this. And this fight is long and annoying, and Kintar hits like a truck. But once you beat him, he begs for mercy and promises to change his ways. And then the game forces you to let him go. No dragging him back to town, no justice, no press A to punt him into the sun. No, you just have to let him walk. Anyway, after returning to Barthra, safe and sound, the daughter has married her fiancé and they have taken over the shop. They will then give you some black pepper on the house. You take it back to the King of Portugal, and true to his word, he gives you your very own ship. And just like that, the world finally opens up. Next on our checklist of random junk we need to save the world for some reason is the Vase of Drought. And getting it is a process. First, we head to the town of Lancel. Why? Because we need some invisibility herbs so we can become invisible and sneak into the castle of Edingenbar. Why? Because the guard at the front gate is the only person in the entire kingdom who cares. Seriously, if you walk in normally, he stops you like, nope, absolutely not, you're not getting in here. But once you turn invisible and just walk past him, everyone inside is totally chill. You can talk to the king, you can wander around, and you even raid the basement. and nobody cares. So apparently, the castle's entire security system is just one guy with trust issues. Spectacular. Anyway, the Vase of Drought is hidden in the basement behind a surprisingly clever NES-era puzzle. You have to push 3 stones into the blue zone at the top of the room. And it's actually a legitimate brain teaser. It took me a few minutes to figure out. And honestly, props to the designers. This was cool. Once you solve it, you get the Vase of Drought. And then you head to a strange spot in the Northern Ocean, dump the vase into the water, and a shrine rises out of the sea like Atlantis. Inside is the final key, the last key you'll need for the entire game. Why is it in here? Why is it underwater? And why does putting a random vase into the ocean summon a building?
Good question.
Yeah, I have no idea. And with the final key in hand, we head to the town of Japan. Yes, it's literally called Japan. And this place has a serious problem. Every year, the town sacrifices a young girl to a monster called the Orochi. Their leader, Hamaku, insists this is the only way to keep the villagers safe and to keep the Orochi from just obliterating the entire town. And most of the villagers hate it, but they have to live with it. And when they see you, they're basically like, hey, if you could go kill that thing, that would be great. So naturally, we head into the cave next to the village to go kill the crap out of this thing. And this boss is no joke. Its gimmick is simple but brutal. It gets 2 turns per round. It only has 2 attacks though, a physical attack and a fire breath. But that fire breath hits your entire party and does a ton of damage. You actually have to strategize quite a bit here. I personally kept using sleep magic on it and then debuffing it and buffing my party just to stay alive. After you beat it, the Orochi flees through a teleporter straight into Hamaku's private chambers. And surprise, Hamaku is the Orochi. She's badly injured and tries to bargain with you and basically says, "You saw my true form, but I'll let you live if you keep quiet." Yeah, no, we beat you once, and I'm pretty sure we can finish the job, especially seeing how wounded you are. So once you beat her for good, she drops the purple orb, another mandatory quest item. And when you return to town, everyone is shocked that their leader was the monster all along. But they're relieved that the sacrifices are over and praise you for saving them. And one of the coolest details is this woman who originally tells you she's relieved she had a boy so he wouldn't be sacrificed to the Orochi. But after you kill the Orochi, she admits she actually had a girl. She just lied to protect her child. It's a small moment, but it adds a surprising amount of emotional weight to the entire storyline of the town. Before we move on to the next major story objective, I need to tell you about one of the craziest moments I had in this game. And it wasn't even part of the main quest. I just wandered into this place by accident the first time I came here. I'm talking about the village of Theoden. I arrived after dark, figured I'd stay at the inn, and everything seemed normal. I talked to the townspeople, checked out the shops, thought, hey, this is a pretty chill place. Then I went to sleep. Then I woke up, and everyone was gone. The entire town was empty. And all I found were skeletons lying around. My immediate reaction was, oh shit! What the hell happened? Did everyone get slaughtered while I was asleep?
What is going on now?
So while searching the town, I found an item called the Lamp of Darkness, by the way. This thing is awesome. Whenever you use it, it instantly turns the world to nighttime. Basically, you can force a time skip if you want. Anyway, so I went back to the village after dark, and suddenly everyone was alive again. And at this point, I'm thinking,
What is going on now?
Then I started noticing certain details, like how many of the buildings are damaged or destroyed. A skeleton in the prison mentions he wanted to give someone an orb before he died. At least, that's what the writing on the wall says. And at night, if you talk to an old man, he thinks the whole situation is some kind of prank. Then it clicked. Something, I don't know who, obliterated this village. Everyone here is dead, and every night, their spirits just reenact their lives, completely unaware of what happened. It's creepy, tragic, and honestly, one of the most haunting moments in the entire game. Later on, I did have to return here for the story, as I realized this place actually holds one of the 6 orbs you need. The green one, I believe. You have to use the final key to open the jail cell, talk to this ghost, and he just hands you the orb. No question, no explanation, no reason. He just gives it to you. It's one of the strangest, saddest, and most memorable moments in Dragon Quest III. And the fact that I stumbled upon it by complete accident the first time made it hit even harder. Our next stop on our orb fetch quest is the House of Pirates, located in the southern part of the world map. And despite the intimidating name, this is actually one of the easiest orbs to get. Why? Because the pirates are weirdly friendly. Yes, you walk into their hideout expecting a fight, and instead, they're more than willing to talk to you. And none of them attack you. It's kind of crazy. And yes, their captain is a woman. She even asks you if you find it strange that a woman is leading pirates. And honestly, I don't really find it that strange. Because while it wasn't common back in the day, it did absolutely happen. Some real-world examples include Grace O'Malley, the Irish pirate queen who commanded her own fleet and defied English rule. And she even negotiated face-to-face with Queen Elizabeth I. And then Ching Shint, who commanded tens of thousands of pirates in the South China Sea, and is arguably the most successful pirate of all time. So yeah, a female pirate captain? Totally believable. Anyway, the pirates once had the red orb, but they lost it. Luckily, finding it is stupidly easy. Walk to the side of their building, push a boulder, search, and you will find a secret staircase that leads to the pirate's treasure room. And in there, in one of the chests, is the red orb. That's another one down. Then, to get to the next orb, we head back to Lancel, because now that we have the final key, we can enter the shrine behind the town. This leads us to the Navel of the Earth, and this dungeon has a unique gimmick. You can only bring one party member in. Make sure whoever it is carrying the final key and has at least one empty inventory slot, preferably 2. Why? Because inside is an optional but extremely good piece of armor, the armor of terra firma. And if you're already here, you might as well grab it. The dungeon itself isn't too hard, but it's pretty interesting because there are faces carved into the walls that literally tell you to turn back later in the dungeon, which is a nice creepy touch for an NES game. Once you reach the end, you get the yellow orb, or whatever color this is. The game never shows them visually, so forgive me if I constantly mix them up. That brings us to 4 orbs down, 2 more to go. And why are we collecting these orbs? There's a reason behind it, trust me, and I'll explain it a little later. So our next major objective is the Staff of Change, which we need to progress the story. So we head to the town of Samanu, and immediately we walk into a funeral. Turns out some poor idiot badmouthed the king and got his head chopped off. Yeah, probably not the best day to visit. Long story short, the king recently returned with the Staff of Change, and ever since then, he's been acting like a completely different person. Suspicious? Absolutely. So naturally, we need to go talk to him. Except, the guards at the front gate won't let us in. But if you go around the side to the servants' entrance, the guard there just asks, "Do you have business here?" And if you say yes, he lets you walk right in. No checking your name, no verifying your story, and absolutely no questions asked. Whoever assigned this guy to security needs to be fired immediately. Inside the kitchen, the servants are terrified because if they don't finish the king's meal on time, they think they'll be executed. So yeah, something is definitely wrong here. When you finally approach the king, he takes one look at you and has you thrown into the dungeon for looking like a scoundrel. But apparently the guards are as dumb as the side entrance guy, because they throw you in the cell with all your equipment and all your keys, including the final key. So you can just walk out. Great job, everyone. Just wonderful job. Exploring the prison, you eventually find the real king locked up in the deepest cell. Apparently, someone stole the Staff of Change, or got the Staff of Change, or something like that, and is using it to impersonate him. And one of the prisoners mentions the Mirror of Ra, which can reveal someone's true form, just like in the original Dragon Quest II. So we go off to a nearby cave to find it. And this cave drove me insane. I spent 45 minutes running in circles because I didn't realize a specific passage led to the staircase down. This one passage here, I never took it for whatever reason and just went in circles. Like an absolute clown. But eventually I found the Mirror of Ra. And now here comes the fun part. Sneaking into the castle through the same servant's entrance that we did earlier. And guess what? There isn't a guard there at all. So, stealth time. Anyway, we find the king asleep, use the Mirror of Ra, and surprise! He's a troll. Not metaphorically, he's literally a giant troll. We beat the ever-loving tar out of him, kill him, and free the real king. The Staff of Change is ours, and the kingdom is saved. And here's the real kicker. If you talk to the kitchen staff afterward, they reveal they were cooking bats and lizards for the fake king. If that didn't tip anyone off that something was wrong, I don't know what would. Like, who in their right mind eats bats and lizards? Anyway, the real king is grateful. The guards now let you enter the castle freely, and we walk away with the Staff of Change. Another major step towards completing the main quest. Next up on our world scavenger hunt is the Sailor's Thigh Bone. Yes, a thigh bone. Why is this important? I'll explain in a second. First, we have to get it. Apparently the pirates at some point obtained this thigh bone. From where? No idea. But they traded it to an old man living in Greenland. So we sail up there, talk to the guy, and he offers to trade the sailor's thigh bone for the Staff of Change. So we hand over our magical shape-shifting artifact for a bone. And what does this thigh bone do? Well, it acts like a supernatural compass that points us towards the Phantom Ship, a ghost ship that still sails the seas long after its crew died. Once you board the Phantom Ship, it's full of monsters, by the way, you can talk to the spirits still trapped there. There's even a skeleton captain who proudly claims his ship is unsinkable, which is hilarious considering this ship already sunk once. That's why it's a phantom ship, but okay. There are also murderers rung below deck, as well as just random people who died at sea. And a man named Errol, who is devastated because he believes he'll never see his beloved Olivia again. Remember that name. It's gonna get dark later. The main objective here is to find the Locket of Love, which isn't too hard since the ship isn't a huge dungeon. Once you grab it, you head to a narrow strait where whenever you try to pass through it, something strange happens. Every time you go into it, a massive wind blows you back. Why? Because after Errol was lost at sea, Olivia threw herself off a cliff in despair, and her spirit now haunts the strait, creating the wind that stops all ships from passing. Yeah, this game went full-on Shakespearean tragedy. To calm her spirit down, you have to use the Locket of Love, which somehow reunites Olivia and Errol in the afterlife, and the wind stops. And now we can pass through the strait. And remember the kingdom of Samanuo? Or Samanon? It's the place we got the Staff of Change from, okay? Well, it turns out the false king banished a hero named Simon. And our clues point us towards the area beyond the strafe. And we need to find him, because he has a sword called the Sword of Gaia, which we need. So, we hunt him down and find a lonely shrine in the middle of a lake. And it turns out everyone inside is dead, including Simon. You can talk to his spirit, and he tells you to search his corpse. When you do, you find the Sword of Gaia, a terrible weapon in combat, but a critical story item we'll need later. And with that, the next major piece of the puzzle falls into place. So, what do we do with the Sword of Gaia? We throw it into a volcano. Yes, really. You take this sword, this story-critical weapon, and yeet it straight into a lava pit. Doing this causes the volcano to erupt, while you're standing right next to it, which feels like a massive OSHA violation, but the eruption conveniently redirects the lava into a nearby river, hardening it and creating a path you can cross. By the way, this is the same volcano your father, Ortega, died in the opening cutscene in. So yeah, let's have a moment of silence for the hero's dead dad. Okay, now let's rage about the Cave of Necron, because I fucking hate this place. This dungeon is a low point of the entire game. I spent over an hour in here, burning through wizard rings, and had to survive using Rob magic constantly, and dealing with non-stop random encounters. It's long, it's annoying, and I fucking hate this dungeon. But eventually, after slogging through this nightmare, you reach the other side. There, a shrine is waiting for you, and inside is the silver orb, which means we got 5 orbs down, and only 1 left to go. So, how do we get the final orb? We build a town. Yes, to obtain the last orb, we need to become urban developers. You see, there's a random patch of land in the middle of nowhere, and I never would have found this out without researching the game while playing. If you go here, a man tells you he wants to build a new town, and if you have a merchant in your party, you can leave them behind to help him. So I created a brand new merchant called Jane, after my old friend, Bailey Jane, aka Bebe, and dropped her off to help build the place. Then I came back later, and Jane had a sex change. I'm not kidding. I left a female merchant here, and when I returned, she was a big bearded dude. I don't know if this is a memory bug, a localization error, or the NES just having a stroke, but it was hilarious. But for the sake of my sanity, we're still calling them she, but the game is clearly confused. Anyway, as you progress through the story and revisit the town, it grows bigger and bigger, and Jane, or Mr. Jane, as the game now calls her, seems to be doing pretty well for herself. But something feels off. For starters, after a certain point, the town gets a theater, where the guy lets you in for free, but then tries to charge you a ridiculous amount of gold on the way out. No warning, no ticket price, just highway robbery. But he realizes you're Mr. Jane's friend, and he lets you go. Then you notice Jane has built herself a house that doubles as a throne room, and the town is now literally named Janesville. Yeah, things are not looking good. Turns out Jane built the town so fast by overworking the laborers and violating every labor law imaginable. And the townspeople are ready to revolt. And eventually, they do. When you return later, the people have staged a full-blown uprising and thrown Jane in jail. She insists she only did this for the good of the town, but I'll let you decide how true that is. But one good thing she did, though, is she managed to obtain the final orb, the yellow orb, and she tells you to look behind her throne. Sure enough, it's sitting right there. And that's the last orb we need. What blows my mind. When I first started this quest, I genuinely thought it was optional. I just saw that this place existed online and thought I would try the side quest out for fun. I had no idea it was gonna turn into a full-blown political coup, a labor rights disaster, and a gender-confused tyrant ruling over a village she names after herself. If I had known the merchant was gonna become a cruel dictator, I wouldn't have named her after my old best friend. I would have named her after my ex-girlfriend. So, what do we need all these legendary orbs for? To hatch a giant legendary bird named Ramia. Yes, really. Let me explain. To reach the Archfiend's castle, we need Ramia. And for some reason, these two ladies in a shrine have been sitting here for who knows how long, waiting for this bird to hatch. Like decades? Centuries? They don't explain it. They're just hanging out here chilling. Anyway, I don't know why they're sitting here looking at him, because the only way to hatch the egg and to get Ramia is to place all 6 orbs on the altars around the shrine. Do that, and boom, the egg cracks open and Ramia hatches. And suddenly, you're riding a giant bird across the world. It's weird, but hey, it works. With Ramia, we can finally reach Baramos, the Archfiend we've been trying to fight this entire game. His castle is huge, maze-like, and honestly pretty cool. The first time I got here, Baramos wiped the floor with me. But after grinding my party to around level 30, he wasn't too bad. And then with that, we go back to Aliahan, our hometown, go talk to the king, because that's what you do at the end of a Dragon Quest game, and then... Yeah, that happens. Turns out Baramos wasn't the real villain. There's another Archfiend, a far more powerful one, who now threatens to cover the world in darkness. And the king? He immediately puts us under a gag order. Yeah, if that isn't the most modern government move imaginable, I don't know what is. So yeah, this game is far from over, which I'm not gonna lie, shocked the hell out of me. Like, I spent over 30 hours in this game already, and I thought I beat it after I beat the Baramos. You're telling me there's more game I gotta do? Yeah, this is far from over. And here's another problem I ran into. I had no idea where I was supposed to go. Like, I was completely lost after the new big bad was revealed. So, I ended up looking up a guide, and it turns out the next step is to jump into a giant hole near Baramos' castle. Yes, just jump into a giant hole. Doing that drops you into an entirely different world. The world of darkness. But Dragon Quest fans know it by a different name. Alifgard. Yup, you fall straight into the world from Dragon Quest 1. You even land right next to Tentacle Castle. And from what I've gathered, this world is ruled by the new Archfiend and the true big bad of the game. At least I hope he's the true big bad of the game. Zoam, or Zoman, who, according to the locals, is a straight-up sadist who enjoys watching people suffer. So, naturally, we got to beat the hell out of this guy. And to do that, we need to build the Rainbow Bridge. Yes, the same Rainbow Bridge from the original Dragon Quest. So, buckle up. We got a whole nother adventure ahead of us. First up on our checklist for rebuilding the Rainbow Bridge is the Sunstone, and you'll never guess where it's hiding. In the castle kitchen. Yeah, the magical artifact needed to save the world is just sitting next to the royal leftovers. Sure, why not? And the guy who tells you this is none other than Kantar. Yes, that Kantar. The thief you fought once or possibly twice, depending on how many side quests you did. And he's just hanging out on the top floor of the House of Healing. He's dressed like a prisoner, even though this isn't a jail. I have no idea what he's doing here, but he thanks you for sparing him earlier and casually drops the location of the Sunstone like it's no big deal, as a thank you for sparing him. So, cool, I guess. Anyway, let's talk about Alfgard for a second, because this place is under eternal night thanks to the archfiend Zomam. And I am shocked this world is even still alive, because plants need sunlight, right? Yet everything here is green and thriving. How? And why hasn't everyone frozen to death? If this world really had no sun for any period of time, this whole dimension should be an ice cube. But nope, apparently it's just a little dark outside. Makes no sense at all. Anyway, the next thing on our list is the fairy flute. And take a wild guess where it's at. Yup, the exact same place we found it in Dragon Quest I. So what do we need it for? Simple, we're gonna use it to free Rubius. If you remember Dragon Quest II, Rubius is the one who helped you make the Eye of Malroth. He was the disembodied voice in the Shrine of Rubius. Well, it turns out in this game, we find out that Rubius is not a he. It's a she. And she's been turned into a statue in a tower northwest of Kol. And this dungeon actually has a pretty interesting gimmick. You see, there are these diamonds on the floor, okay? And they wonk up your controls. But how you solve the puzzle and figure out how they've wonked up your controls is simple. Just turn your controller to where the up button on the D-pad is facing the same direction as the lighter part of the diamond. And doing that will make it to where you can control your character normally. Anyway, at the top of the tower, we find Rubius, encased in this statue. Play the fairy flute and free her. And once you do, she gives you the sacred amulet and promises to repay the favor if you defeat the archfiend. Oh yeah, and she also casually mentions she created Alfgard. So yeah, this isn't just some random wizard like I thought he or she was in Dragon Quest II. This is the literal goddess of the Dragon Quest world. Damn. Talk about a revelation. And after that, we just need the Staff of Rain. This one is easy. Head to the far south of the map, find the Swamp Shrine, talk to the lady inside, and she just hands it over. No dungeon, no puzzle, no nothing. It's just a, oh, you're saving the world? Here you go. So, with the Sunstone, Sacred Amulet, and Staff of Rain in hand, we can finally head to the shrine at the very south of the map, the exact same shrine where you got the Rainbow Drop in Dragon Quest I, to, you guessed it, get the Rainbow Drop in this game. But before we storm the big bad's lair, there's one more thing we can grab to make the final boss a little less miserable. The Orb of Light. If you remember Dragon Quest I, This thing was a huge deal. It's been mentioned a few times in this game, but the game never tells you where it is. Turns out you get it from the Dragon Queen in the Light World. And when you visit her, she's on her deathbed, literally moments from dying. But she gives you the Orb of Light as long as you promise to defeat Zom. And then she dies, right after laying an egg. So, yeah. My question is, who's gonna raise that kid? Is it gonna be the dwarfs hanging out in the castle? Or are dragons like reptiles and don't need their mother? Like, what's gonna happen to this kid? Don't care, not our problem. What is our problem is the Orb of Light itself, or as I like to call it, the Orb of Seizure Induction.
Wanna know why?
Because when you use the thing, this happens. Anyway, with the rainbow drop in hand, we can finally enter Zom's castle. And this place is your classic final dungeon. Long, dangerous, and full of monsters that want you dead. And there are 2 boss rushes in the castle, by the way. First, you have to fight 6 granite titans back to back in groups of 2. Then, when you finally reach Zom's throne room, he makes you fight 3 more bosses before you can even touch him. And somewhere in this nightmare, we find Ortega, the hero's father. He's fighting the King Hydra, one of the bosses you'll have to fight later. And well, Ortega puts up a good fight, but he ends up being fatally wounded, and in his final moments, he regrets failing to bring peace to the world, and asks the party to tell his son what happened here, not realizing his son is literally standing right in front of him. And he dies without recognizing you. Man, that sucks. Like, I really feel bad for Ortega, as well as his son here. I mean, if his son had more personality than a plank of wood, I'm sure this would hit harder. But still, damn. I also kind of knew he had to be alive because Alfgard, or the Dark World, whatever you want to call it, is full of rumors about him. You see, he fell into this world with severe burns. You find that out from one of the ladies in Tantago Castle. Who was the one who nursed him back to health? And then he tried to reach the Dragon Lord's castle, but everyone thought he drowned on the way there. So I knew at some point we would have to meet him, but this wasn't how I was expecting it to go down. Anyway, then comes the final boss with Zom. And this guy, he's not complicated, he's not tragic, and he's definitely not misunderstood. He's a sadist, pure and simple. He likes watching people suffer. That's his entire personality. And he is hard. My successful attempt to take him down took over 10 minutes. And my failed attempts lasted upward of 30 minutes. He uses spells constantly that hit the entire party. And he has a massive pool of HP, and worst of all, he has a move that removes all of your buffs. So every time you cast Increase, Speed Up, Buy Kill, whatever, he could just wipe it away. But here's where the Orb of Light comes in. use it on Zom, and it weakens him dramatically. Which is good, because without it, this fight would be a nightmare. Anyway, after a brutal battle, Zom finally falls. But before he dies, he pulls a Demise from Skyward Sword move, where he announces a prophecy that someone like him will rise again one day, long after we're dead. Then after that, we gotta escape the castle because it's falling apart. At one point, we will fall through a fissure that spits us out into the first dungeon from Dragon Quest I, the cave north of Tantagel. Why? No idea. But we escape the collapsing cave, reach the surface, and for the first time in a long time in this world, the sun rises and daylight returns to Alfgard. We head to Tangtagel Castle, and everyone celebrates the fall of Zom. The king is so impressed that he bestows upon us the title of Erdrick. And now is the perfect time to reveal the twist. Dragon Quest III is a prequel to Dragon Quest I. The post-credits scene even says, "To be continued in Dragon Warrior." So yes, everything clicks into place at the end. This is the origin of the hero Erdrick. It explains where the orbs in Dragon Quest II came from. They're the orbs Erdrick used to resurrect the bird thing. It explains why Erdrick disappeared suddenly after he saved the world, because he's not from this world and returned to his home. This also explains why the Dragon Lord exists. That egg the Dragon Queen laid is most certainly him, which means, oh no, no. That egg she laid? That's the Dragon Lord. Can we, go back and make an omelet out of it? Because that would save this world a lot of trouble. So yeah, that's the story covered and down. But there's still a lot to talk about. Because while the story was okay, the best part of this game is easily the side content. Here are some of the highlights from my playthrough. I should point out, I by no means did a completionist run of this game, so there's probably tons of side content I missed. The first thing I want to bring up is the fact that you can visit Hawksness, the town that gets obliterated by the Dragon Lord in Dragon Quest I. Yeah, you can see that town before it's destroyed. And it's a fully functioning town. You can even find the Oricon here, which you can use to make the King's Sword, one of the strongest weapons in the game. Oh, and the weapons shop owner? He can't sell you anything because he's too busy trying to think of a name for his unborn kid. Peak Dragon Quest energy right there. And you can also meet Garland, as well as his parents. You know Garland, right? The bard who founded Garenham in Dragon Quest I? And his parents actually live exactly where the town will eventually be built. And they're worried about Garland because he ran off to pursue music. And you can find him in Canton. And while you're there, you can meet a guy who's building the golem. Yes, the golem you fight in Dragon Quest I. Turns out, it was built to protect the town. This game is a prequel and it just loves showing it. And then there's the town of Asaram in the Light World. Yes, the town is literally called Asaram. They named it that. and it's one of the more entertaining towns in the game. During the day, you can barter with shopkeepers to get lower prices. At night, a woman will invite you into her house alone to tell you your fortune. You sit on the bed, the lights go out, and it turns out her dad is under the bed swapping film slides into a crystal ball. Yeah. Seriously, the whole town actually changes depending on the time of day or night. Speaking of desert areas, there is, of course, the town of Isis, which is one of the most unique towns in the game. A desert oasis ruled by a beloved queen, and everyone talks about how beautiful she is, but when you meet her, she's humble and very confused about all the attention, which is honestly pretty funny. And you can even sneak into her bedroom at night. Yes, you can do this in an NES game. And she is happy to see you. And she says that she'll give you a gift. And before your mind starts going places, you should know that it's just a magic ring. And there's also a monster arena in the game where you can bet on monster fights. It's not the most exciting minigame, but it's cool that it exists at all in an NES RPG. And then we get one of the darkest side quests, the sleeping village of Nollis. You see, when you go to Nollis, everyone is passed out cold. You have to visit the secret town of the elves. And it turns out these elves absolutely hate humans. Why? Because the elven princess and a human boy eloped. They also took an artifact called the Dream Ruby with them. You can actually try to hunt them down, but you end up finding the Dream Ruby near a note that says that when the elven princess and the boy realized they could never be together in this life, they drowned themselves in a lake. You recover the ruby, bring it to the elven queen, and she's pretty upset, but she does give you some powder to wake up the village. But the elves still hate you. And the only way to buy items from them is to get the Staff of Change and to transform into a dwarf. Otherwise, they won't sell you items. Yeah, it's a surprisingly heavy story for an NES game. But to end this section of the review on a high note, one of the funniest side quests in the game lets you become the king of Romilly. Yes, you retrieve the stolen crown of the king from the Tower of Champagne because the thief, Kantar, yes, that Kantar. True story, this side quest was actually the first time I encountered him. But anyway, Kantar is using the Tower of Champagne as his hideout. So we gotta go there and get the king's crown back. Anyway, if you bring it back to the king, he just gives you the throne. Yeah, you get to become king of the city. You can walk around, talk to people, and everyone treats you like royalty. One guy even asks you to lower taxes. But there's a catch. You can't leave the city. The guards physically block your path when you try to leave because it's too dangerous. And I'm like, buddy, I just slaughtered a tower full of bandits to get this crown. I think I'll be fine. But if you ever get tired of the life of a king, you can visit the monster arena in town, and the old king will take his job back. And I can't believe I almost forgot to mention the pyramid, because this place is easily one of the coolest optional areas in Dragon Quest III. First off, the music is incredible. One of my favorite tracks in the entire game. It sets the mood perfectly. But the dungeon itself, it's a treasure hunter's dream. There's a button puzzle that forces you to think instead of just fight your way through it. There's a king's treasure room where every time you open a chest, a ghostly voice basically yells at you, "Hey, stop stealing my stuff!" And then you get jumped by 4 mommy men for grave robbing. And there's even a hidden basement with the Golden Claw in it, one of the best fighter weapons in the entire game. The Golden Claw is hilarious because it makes your encounter rate skyrocket. Like every 2 steps, you have to fight a monster. It's completely insane to actually use this thing throughout your entire playthrough, but it sells for a ridiculous amount of gold, so it's absolutely worth grabbing. I kept coming back to the pyramid multiple times throughout my playthrough just to explore it some more. Seriously, it was a lot of fun. But the side content and the main story is just scratching the surface of Dragon Quest III. You know, I haven't even gotten into the class system yet. So let's remedy that right now. You can build your entire party from scratch, except for the hero. That's your player character, you. You're stuck as the hero class forever. You can't change it. But everyone else, you can make them whatever class you want, whatever gender you want, and name them anything you want. So naturally, I named all my party after Centurion Dragon Studio members, as you all know. And you can also pick from pre-made characters at the tavern, and the NPC there will actually warn you not to pick a goof-off, which I find absolutely hilarious. Anyway, let's break down the classes. First is the hero class. That's you, the main character. Only you can be a hero and no one else can become one. Heroes are basically good at everything, bad at nothing, and the only ones who can use the strongest gear. And they're also the only classes that get spells like Zap and Thordon, or Thunderon. I think I said that right, but who cares? They're the backbone of the party. Then there's the soldier, the walking tank. Their main stat is strength, and their second stat is vitality. Soldiers are simple. They hit hard, take hits, wear the best armor, and move slower than a rock rolling uphill. They're the slowest class in the game, but they're also the most reliable. If you want a character who solves problems by hitting them until they stop moving, this is your class. Then there's the fighter, the fast murder machine. Main stat is agility. The secondary stat for them is strength. Fighters are like soldiers. If soldiers drank 5 energy drinks and refused to wear armor. They hit hard, they hit fast, and they dodge a lot. They can't wear much armor, but they critical hit like crazy. And female fighters get access to female-only armor, which makes them slightly tankier than male fighters. Also, fighters don't use swords, so they don't compete with your hero for gear. Then there's the pilgrim, the white mage who can punch. Main stat for them is intelligence. Their secondary stat is agility. Pilgrims are your healers. They get heal, multi-heal, buffs, and debuffs. And a few attack spells. But here's the funny part. Pilgrims can actually actually hit pretty hard physically. They're like, I'll heal you, but I'll also smack a demon with a staff if I have to. Then there's wizards, the glass cannons. Their main stat is intelligence, and their secondary stat is agility. Wizards are the definition of fragile but powerful. They get the strongest attack spells, tons of MP, access to items that can cast spells for free, and the defensive status of a wet paper towel. They will die. A lot. But they'll take half the screen with them. Also, can we talk about the official art for the wizards? Because the male wizard looks like a 60-year-old battle-hardened warlock. And the female wizard looks like she just graduated high school. Why is there a 40-year age gap between the two? Can old women not be wizards? Come on, Enix. Then there's the merchant, the capitalist support class. Their main stat is vitality. Their secondary stat is intelligence. Merchants are weird, but useful. They can find extra gold after battles. They can appraise items. They level up fast. They can fight very well. They can't equip much. And for some reason they have MP, but no spells. They're basically accountants with clubs. And you're gonna need to make one eventually if you're gonna do the build a town quest. Even if your merchant ends up becoming a tyrannical dictator named Jane by the end of it. Yes, that quest is still hilarious. Then there's the goof-off, the Chaos Gremlin. Their main stat is luck. Their secondary stat is vitality. The goof-off is the worst class in the game, until it becomes the best class in the game. Why? Because goof-offs can become sages without the Book of Satori. But until then, they're useless. They do whatever they want in battle, including trip and fall for no reason, smile serenely while everyone else is dying, tap dance to raise their own evasion, spin their finger to confuse a monster, make a pun so bad the enemy laughs, sing loudly, sometimes so beautifully the enemy loses a turn, glaze sexily at a monster, works even better if female, tell a story that makes a party member lose their turn, laugh like a mad scientist to scare monsters away, puff puff a monster, yes, really, throw a boulder at a party member or an enemy, cast multi-heal at level 50 because they ran out of things to do. They are chaos incarnate, and I love them. And if I ever do another playthrough of this game, I guarantee you I'll be using a goof-off in my party. Now we get to the final, and arguably most powerful class in Dragon Quest III. The Sage, the ultimate hybrid. Main attribute is intelligence, and their second attribute just depends on how you got the Sage. Sages are basically what happens when the designers said, what if a wizard and a pilgrim did a fusion dance? The Sage has the MP and spell power of the wizard, the defense and physical strength of a pilgrim, almost every spell in the game, the ability to equip some high-level gear the pilgrims can't. They are absolute beasts. But there's a catch. Sages level up slowly. Not painfully slowly, but slower than any other class. They need about 1.5 times more EXP than any other class to level up. So yes, they're incredible, but they make you pay for it. Then of course there's the Temple of Dharma. You see, once a character hits level 20, you can take them to the Temple of Dharma and change their class. This resets them to level 1, but they keep half their stats, all of their spells, and all of their learned abilities. Which means if you're willing to grind, you can create some absolutely insane hybrid builds. A fighter can change into a soldier, which will make them a fast tank. A wizard can become a pilgrim that now is a healer with nukes. A merchant can change into a fighter and, well, become a fighter who knows how to do taxes. And a goof-off can become a sage, which makes them a fucking god among mortals. It's one of the coolest systems in the entire game. This is also the only place you can get a sage. There are two ways to do it. One, you can bring a level 20 goof-off to the Temple of Dharma, and boom, instant sage. I don't know what it is about being a clown that qualifies someone to become a sage, but I guess we can just roll with it. Or, if you don't want to deal with the goof-off's antics, you can climb the Tower of Transcendence, north of Dharma, and find the Book of Satori. Bring that book to the temple, and any level 20 character can become a sage. As for how I did my party class changes, once my whole team hit level 20, I made Jared, who was originally a fighter, become a soldier. Now he hits like a truck and tanks like one. Shane, who was originally a merchant, I made him become a fighter. He went from doing taxes to doing roundhouse kicks. And Ashlyn, who was originally my wizard, I made her become a sage. And she became a walking nuclear reactor with healing spells. Another thing Dragon Quest III absolutely nails is the quality of life improvements. First up, fast travel. If you have a Wing of the Wyvern or a return spell, you can instantly warp to any town you visited. And let me tell you, this is incredible. Exploration becomes smoother, backtracking becomes painless, and the game just feels better to play with this. Next up is the Vault in Aliahan. This thing is a lifesaver. The vault lets you store items you don't want to carry, and gold you don't want to lose, and anything you think you'll need later. And the best part? You have access to it from the very start, because Aliahan is your hometown. Why is this so important? Because when you die, in this Dragon Quest, as well as the two previous ones, you lose half your gold. But if you stash your money in the vault, you lose nothing. It's basically Dragon Quest's version of SDIC insurance. You can pick up your items or gold anytime for a small fee, and it makes inventory management so much easier. Especially in a game where you're constantly juggling keys, quest items, healing herbs, and whatever random junk your merchant picked up. And if I had to give one negative to Dragon Quest III, which it technically isn't a negative depending on what kind of RPG player you are, but for me, it most certainly is. That is, your party members. They're basically planks of wood. Just like in the previous Dragon Quest games, your hero almost never talks. Your party members almost never talk. And when they do talk, it's generic one-liners that barely count as dialogue. So if you're looking for deep character arcs, emotional backstories, or party banter, like in most modern RPGs, yeah, you're not getting that here. The story structure is basically, There's a big bad, go kill the big bad, and how you get there is up to you. And honestly, that's a charm, but also the limitation. Dragon Quest III is extremely open, like shockingly open for an NES game. Just wander around and you'll stumble onto entire storylines by accident. And if you watched my side content section, you already know half the stuff I found was by complete accident. And that's when the game is at its absolute best. When you're just exploring, poking around, and suddenly falling face first into a new quest you didn't even know existed. Each town has its own little story or problem to solve. None of them are super deep, but they're fun, memorable, and full of personality. But it also means the game doesn't have a traditional narrative arc. There's no character development, no emotional growth, no party dynamics. Just you and your squad of mostly silent murder hobos wandering the world and fixing whatever nonsense you happen to trip over. And again, that's not a bad thing. It's just not my preferred style of RPG storytelling. But here's the important part. I can absolutely recommend Dragon Quest III way more than I can recommend the first two. Why? Because this game is actually really good. If you want a world to explore, if you want near unlimited freedom, if you want to stumble into random adventures with no hand-holding, Dragon Quest III has you covered. You really do feel like a band of adventurers just roaming the world, discovering secrets and solving problems, and getting into trouble. And keep in mind, even in this massive review, I didn't cover everything you can do in this game. Not even close. This game is huge. It's weird, it's charming, and it's absolutely worth playing, especially if you're doing it blind. Oh, and an important thing I think I should bring up is the music. Unlike the first two games, Dragon Quest III actually has some really good tracks. Like, legitimately good. Like, not good for the NES, not good for its time, but good. Now, most of the soundtracks are still pretty forgettable and didn't stick with me. I couldn't hum most of them if you paid me. But there are a handful of tracks that are really good. And those are the battle theme. And this one shocked me. Yeah, the main battle theme is actually pretty energetic and catchy. And it actually gets you pumped for combat. So yeah, I consider this theme a massive upgrade from the first two Dragon Quest battle themes. Next up is the pyramid theme. I've already said how much I love exploring the pyramid, but the music is half the reason why. It's mysterious, it's atmospheric, and honestly one of the best dungeon themes on the NES. It's that good. And lastly, the Town of Japan theme. This one actually blew my mind. They somehow made a track that sounds Japanese on the NES sound chip. And it actually works. It fits the town perfectly and adds a ton of personality to the area. For an 8-bit system, that's impressive. And that was my playthrough of Dragon Quest III. Honestly, I thought it was a pretty good game. Yeah, it has a few minor flaws, no game is perfect, but this one genuinely surprised me. It's fun, it's huge, it's weird in all the best ways, and I'm really glad I finally got to experience it. If you have any memories of Dragon Quest III, drop them in the comments below. I love reading people's stories, especially with games as old as this one. And next Saturday, my review of Dragon Quest IV will be dropping, the final chapter of this little RPG marathon I've been doing. I'm really excited to dive into that one. Also, now that you've made it to the end, I should probably mention that my studio is releasing an RPG of our own in just a few weeks actually. Myths and Monsters. It launches July 3rd, and I'll end this video with a trailer for that game, so you can check it out. This is Troy Schultz, the Anti-Gamer Slayer, signing off! Hey, you! Yes, you! Doom Scroller! Do I have the thing that's absolutely gonna test your attention span? First off, this RPG has no voice acting. None. Zero. You actually have to read, which already disqualifies half the internet from playing it. And the combat? Yeah, you can't just mash attack and pray. Try that here, and you'll be staring at the game over screen in no time if you don't use your brain. The game doesn't hold your hand either. It's hard, like actually hard, the kind of hard that makes you question your life choices. World map? Pah! Who needs a world map? You get a compass. It shows your coordinates. I hope you wrote down where you were supposed to go when the NPC told you. If not, too bad. Figure it out, chump. Myths and Monsters. If your brain's been asleep for a decade, it's about to get a wake-up call.